Hello, I'm Ultimate Reviews of Ultimate Animation, and if you saw my last video, you know I love Bob's Burgers, and I decided, rather than just state that in the review, I'd go a step further and talk about my favourite episodes, so here we are. Now, choosing my top 10 favourite episodes was actually harder than you might think, for one very specific reason. Far too many choices. Genuinely, there are so many enjoyable, smart, and funny episodes that choosing a top 10 is surprisingly difficult. I could probably make a top 50 list if I really wanted to, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. But despite that, I managed to narrow it down to my personal picks for my top 10 favourite episodes, plus honourable mentions. Now, this is just my list, and if you have your own favourite episodes that I don't mention here, then I totally understand, with the amount of good episodes as stated before. So feel free to leave your favourite episodes in the comments. With that out of the way, let's flip into, I don't know, I couldn't think of another burger pun. The top 10 best episodes of Bob's Burgers.
Do 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 means I love you.
No, it doesn't.
Do 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 means I care.
That actually means egg.
Do 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 means Fungus.
That means cat.
Do 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 means I'll always be there.
Boys just want to have fungus. Starting the list, we have a Bob and Jean episode. Already a very interesting setup considering we rarely see them paired together. It's usually Bob and Tina, while Jean is usually paired with Linda. But here they mix it up a bit, and the pairing works really well. In this episode, Bob and Jean are at the market and discover some expensive and rare woolly Neptune mushrooms have started growing in a forest nearby, and unable to afford the extortionate market prices, they decide to just go and forage for mushrooms themselves. There's not a lot to this episode, it's pretty straightforward, but I think that's what works about it. Bob and Jean make for a very entertaining duo, and watching them work together to overcome various obstacles and unexpectedly win in the end is very sweet to watch. We also get a funny subplot about Tina believing she's got superpowers thanks to her new glasses, but learning that she doesn't actually need real powers to be super in her own way. That's actually kind of nice. Overall, just a laid-back, enjoyable episode that I love to revisit and never fails to make me smile. But how about something a little bit more on the frightening side for our next entry?
Do 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 means I love you.
No, it doesn't.
Do 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 means I care.
That actually means egg.
Do 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 means Fungus.
That means cat.
Do 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 means I'll always be there.
Fortnite. Halloween episode. I made it no secret that I am a huge fan of the spooky and twisted, and this episode I feel captures that the best, but still with a lot of Bob's Burgers charm to it. On Halloween night, the Belchies kids are getting ready for their annual trick-or-treating spree, but while they wait for their costume to be made, they decide to chill with some friends, Ollie, Andy, and Daryl, in the fort that they built. Unfortunately for them, they all get trapped by a truck that's going to be parked there all night, and even worse, they're discovered by Louise's psychotic, self-proclaimed best friend, Millie. And due to Louise's refusal to wear a matching costume, Millie doesn't get help and instead spends the night torturing them while they run out of precious candy time. This episode fully embraces the creepy Halloween feel, with a setup that could easily come right out of a horror movie. It plays on all the tropes, the claustrophobia, the ticking clock, and the constant feeling of total powerlessness to escape the situation. Its setting also adds a lot. I'm not sure how they managed to make this fort feel like something massive to incredibly cramped and uncomfortable in a split second, and I love how it's able to twist something as innocent and childlike as a fort into something truly horrible and straight out of a nightmare. But what really makes this episode so unsettling is Millie. She was already an unsettling character to say the least, but this episode had her go off the deep end into full-on crazy, and watching how she delights in tormenting not only Louise, but also the others who didn't do anything, quote, wrong, also shows how messed up she really is. She reminds me of the Cable Guy or something, where she's so unhinged and obsessed that you don't really know what she'll do next. But having said that, it's still kept lighthearted enough to be funny, and never goes quite too far. With a lot of funny jokes, a lot of which come from Ollie and Andy, who are always hilarious no matter what episode they're in. The subplot with Bob and Linda building the costume is also pretty funny, and they come across all sorts of problems that just keep building on top of one another. We also get to see Millie get the appropriate comeuppance at the end. So overall, a balanced episode for you to sink your teeth into.
Do 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 means I love you.
No, it doesn't.
Do 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 means I care.
That actually means egg.
Do 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 means Fungus.
That means cat.
Do do
Torture Evaluations. This is an episode that proves the show is still brilliant 12 seasons later. When student-teacher evaluation rolls around, the students, realizing they now have all the power, choose to exploit their teachers to get whatever they want for one day. Louise is of course the one who utilizes this the most, going mad with power and encouraging others to do the same. But Louise faces a dilemma when one of her many nemesis, Miss LeBron's, reveals she actually helps Louise a lot more than she first realized. Not only is this episode incredibly funny with the teachers groveling and students making their life hell, finally getting everything they want with their newfound power, and also a surprisingly funny subplot with Bob and Linda disagreeing on what they want to happen to them when they die. Okay, I know that doesn't sound funny, but they get a lot of jokes out of it. But it also shows the moral side of Louise that makes her more complex than even she would like to admit. And I won't give away, but the ending is really sweet and ties things together really nicely. Definitely want to check out if you're a fan of Louise or just want something to put on that's both funny and really heartfelt.
Do 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 do. Means I love you.
No, it doesn't.
Do 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 do. Means I care.
That actually means egg.
Do 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 do. Means Fungus.
That means cat.
Do 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 do. Means I'll always be there.
UFO No You Didn't. Before I say anything else, that title is amazing. Anyway, I think it was pretty obvious this was going to be on the list considering I've been using the jingle from the end of the episode as the transition music. Anyway, in this episode, Tina gets a new science partner, Susmita, and they decide to do a project on sending messages to outer space. But another classmate, Brian, is convinced it could attract hostile aliens, and with the help of Louise and Jean, tries his best to sabotage the project, and tries to convince them the project could be dangerous. This episode shows what Bob's Burgers does best. You don't always need complicated plots or super intricate stories. Sometimes all you need is two very likable, funny characters working off each other, and you could strike gold. Tina's already funny enough on her own with her charming awkwardness and funny line delivery, but Susmita really adds a lot as well. She's intelligent but not overly full of herself like a lot of other smart characters, and despite her knowledge of science, she's still got as much of an imagination as Tina. There's Aparna and Sherla voicing her, and she is absolutely hilarious. If you've never seen her stand-up, I totally recommend checking it out. She gives a great performance here, and watching these two fantastic characters interact is just great. I also like that they don't just bicker. Usually in science fair plots like these, the two characters forced to work together hate each other, and I never really found that all that fun. But here they get along well and have a bond that forms organically over the course of the episode. And when they do fight, it's not out of spite or annoyance, it's about them forming a different conclusion, which is an understandable and relatable reason. And they still make up in the end. I'd love to see more of Susmita in future episodes, particularly Tina-focused episodes, but in the meantime we have Moon from the Great North, another very funny character with the same voice. But definitely check this episode out if you haven't already. And if nothing else, that song is super catchy. Play it again.
Do 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 do. Means I love you.
No, it doesn't.
Do 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 do. Means I care.
That actually means egg.
Do 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 do. Means Fungus.
That means cat.
Do 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 do. Means I'll always be there.
The Belchies. One of the earlier episodes on the list, but I think it embodies the best of early Bob's Burgers. In an homage to the Goonies, the Belcher kids hear about a treasure in the abandoned taffy factory through a supposed butt joke. But not getting the joke, they take it as serious, and with the help of some friends, they go to see if the treasure is real. Again, it's a very simple premise for an episode, but the characters and scenarios really carry it through. Everyone gets a chance to shine here, and it's just plain funny. I won't give away the twist about the treasure, but it's kind of hilarious. The treasure's not super important, it's more about the journey, and they kind of write it off at the start, but they still manage to bring it back in a clever way to bring everything full circle, which just adds to the episode as a whole. There's not much to say about the episode, as it's mostly about the characters and the jokes, so I'd say just check it out for yourself to see what I'm talking about.
Do 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 do. Means I love you.
No, it doesn't.
Do 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 do. Means I care.
That actually means egg.
Do 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 do. Means Fungus.
That means cat.
Do 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 do. Means I'll always be there.
I am not a fan of Valentine's Day by any stretch of the imagination. If it wasn't for Bonfire Night being so loud and obnoxious, I'd call Valentine's Day my least favourite holiday. So for an episode centered around Valentine's Day to be not only enjoyable to me, but also in the top 5 best episodes of the show, it must be something special. On Valentine's Day, everyone in the Belcher family has love on their mind, in one way or another, and each of them gets their own story of love and chaos. Bob takes up hip-hop dancing to surprise Linda with a romantic gesture. Tina is confronted with a dilemma about whether to jump with Jimmy Jr. and risk a chili-fueled humiliation. Louise is panicked by a possible advance from Rudy, but when she learns it's actually for a mean popular girl, she takes it upon herself to try and protect his feelings. And Jean falls in love with sweets and the person that makes them, a new dinner lady who makes chocolate. The episode has a very 22 short films about Springfield vibe to it in the best way, with fewer, more grounded stories to keep it from getting too lost. It has just the right amount of schmaltz to be endearing, particularly the way each story ends, but it's still got plenty of laughs all around. I like how they don't just have a generic everyone wants to ask their sweethearts out and that's it. They show a little bit more creativity with it having different conflicts for each character, while still relating it to Valentine's Day in some form or another. I also personally appreciate the inclusion of someone who's actually not a fan of Valentine's Day. Louise hates Valentine's Day and relationships in general, it seems, and she's worried about upsetting Rudy. It's actually kind of refreshing to see a character not interested in getting with anyone, and we get to see Louise's caring side, again trying to protect Rudy's heart from rejection, technically twice. The cast is also spectacular with a number of guest voices. Brooke Dillman voices Shelley, the hip-hop dance teacher, and she is hysterical. This character is the perfect combination of cheesy and fun. Gabby Sanolita voices Isabella, the substitute lunch lady, and she does the part almost entirely in Italian, which makes for a very interesting communication dynamic with Jean. Stephanie Beatrice voices Chloe Barbash, and I'm always impressed with her range of voices. And of course, the normal cast are great too, and work with all of them amazingly. Overall, just a very fun, light-hearted episode with a lot of heart and some very sweet moments to boot. Check it out this Valentine's Day, or any other day for that matter.
Do 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 do. Means I love you.
No, it doesn't.
Do 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 do. Means I care.
That actually means egg.
Do 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 do. Means Fungus.
That means cat.
Do 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 do. Means I'll always be there.
The Bleakening, Part 1 and 2. Is it cheating to count 2 episodes as one if it's a 2-parter and one continuous story? Fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway, it's my list, sue me. Anyway, The Bleakening is a 2-part Christmas epic on a scale we rarely get to see, and done in a very Bob's Burgers way. Linda wants to throw a Christmas party for everyone in the town due to a dream she takes as a sign, but when her small tree gets taken, everyone goes through a huge ordeal to get it back, and the mystery of who stole it and why gets deeper and deeper. The kids hear a story from Teddy and come to the conclusion that it was taken by basically their version of Krampus, a shadowy Christmas monster named the Bleaken. And while Linda and Bob look for the actual thief, the kids follow a trail of what they believe to be the Bleaken. The scale of this episode is amazing. It's not that much more extreme than other Christmas episodes, but they make it feel like a big, action-packed story. The characters are hilarious, the songs are some of the best the show has ever put out, the tension keeps building, and while I won't give it away here, the ending is just perfect and does a good job of tying up all the loose ends. The Bleaken itself is also very interesting. It's clearly taking inspiration from the folktale Krampus, but he's different enough to be interesting in its own right. And the episode does a good job of making you feel like, despite being ridiculous, he could still be real, just from the belief of Teddy and the kids. I look forward to watching this episode every Christmas as much as any of the classic holiday movies. Check it out for yourself this holiday season, or again, really any time of the year.
Do 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 do. Means I love you.
No, it doesn't.
Do 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 do. Means I care.
That actually means egg.
Do 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 do. Means Fungus.
That means cat.
Do 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 do. Means I'll always be there.
Thelma and Louise, except Thelma is Linda. Okay, seriously, some of these titles are just perfect. Anyway, in this episode, Louise sticks up for a kid by pantsing his bully and is punished for it with an in-school suspension. Linda is called, but is faced with a dilemma, as she has to decide whether what Louise did is excusable because she did it for the right reasons. She decides it's more important to teach Louise it's always worth it to help people, even if you don't always get rewarded, by helping her escape to get ice cream before putting her back at the end of the day. Things get complicated when Mr. Frond thinks he spotted them, and it becomes a race to see if they can get Louise back into in-school suspension before Mr. Frond either spots them, ruining Linda's chances at running the bake sale, or gets back to school and finds she's not there. This episode is great for a couple of reasons. One being the interactions between Linda and Louise, as they're both great characters and make for a very fun duo. Another reason is we get to see Linda choose teaching Louise a good lesson and risk losing the bake sale, prioritizing Louise over her. Linda is an excellent parent, and this episode really shows that. We also get a lot of Louise putting others first, and it could be argued that character development started with this episode. It's also just really fun and entertaining seeing Linda and Louise avoid Mr. Frond and watching them narrowly avoid getting caught. Wondering if Louise will make it back in time. Overall, just a really solid episode with great moments from Louise, Linda, and Mr. Frond.
Do 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 means I love you.
No, it doesn't.
Do 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 means I care.
That actually means egg.
Do 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 means lunches.
That means cat.
Do 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 means I'll always be there.
Father of the Bob. Another Christmas episode, this time with a much smaller scale, but still leaves just as big an impact. The Belcher family go and visit Bob's father, Big Bob, at his restaurant for Christmas, and we see all the reasons behind Bob's hesitation and 15-minute rule. They have a tenuous relationship, to say the least, as shown in other episodes like Bob Fires the Kids, but Linda is determined to get them to reconnect, but being around each other ends up pushing them further and further, resulting in a cook-off between the Bobs, and eventually leading to them showing they care for each other deep down. So we get a nice familial connection. All the Bob's Burgers Christmas specials are great, with each one having its own brand of Christmas cheer, but this one remains my favourite. The simplicity of this episode really sells it. It's not bombastic or crazy or anything like that, and it's not trying to be, but it has its own kind of atmosphere that's so relatable and so personal feeling you can't help but get sucked in. Also, in the words of modern-day philosopher Kermit the Frog, it feels like Christmas. Both the good side, coming in from the cold into the warm environment, making gifts, reconnecting with people, but also the bad, like family drama and harsh reality. The subplot with the Belcher kids having a competition to see who can make the best gift gives some levity and a nice break from the more emotional-fueled A-plot. What ties into the ending is actually pretty clever. The flashbacks gives us more of an insight into the Bob's relationship and how Bob got to where he is, and there's still plenty of jokes to get us through to the inevitable reconciliation, which is very sweet and is the main highlight of the episode. I said before, I love all the Bob's Burgers Christmas episodes, but this one is the one I come back to the most as a staple of the holiday, and showing just how human Bob's Burgers can get. Also, I really want to try the Baby You Can Try My Car burger. Anyone else? Okay. Time for some honorable mentions. Human Flesh, the first episode of the series and definitely noteworthy, but in all honesty, not my favourite episode. All the characters feel off, and Hugo the Health Inspector is a really annoying character, but it still has a few laughs, and again it's the first episode, so it at least deserves a mention. Dream a Little Bob of Bob. A great episode with a lot of creativity and a very strong message, but I think the number one spot does something similar, just a little bit stronger. Still definitely check it out. The Haunting. I feel bad for leaving this one off the list, as I do really enjoy it, and the ending is one of my favourites, but I think Fortnite is just a little bit creepier, so I prefer it in general. But both are excellent to check out around spooky season. Stand by Gene, a great adventure episode, and another Gene-centric episode that I enjoy rewatching, although strangely enough, I think I prefer the subplot of this episode. It's funny seeing Bob get just as into the game as Linda, and him ultimately rooting for her is so sweet. All the Christmas episodes. I thought I'd lump these all into one because they're all great, lots of creativity and Christmas magic to be found here. Vampire Disco Death Dance. A really good Tina and Bob bonding episode with a good understanding of cult films and an interesting conflict with a sweet resolution. Nice moments throughout, but there was a little bit too much Tammy for me. Other than that, a very solid episode. Die Card or Card Trying. Another simple premise, but we get to see the whole family interact in a new kind of environment, which adds a lot. Something old, something new, something Bob Carter for you. Bob and Linda save a wedding with burgers. The premise alone is so funny and interesting, it has to be considered for the list. And the song is also really good and probably my favourite out of the entire show, second only to the song in the number one episode. Best Burger. The idea of a cooking competition as a setting for an episode is probably one of my favourite premises, and I'm surprised it wasn't utilised sooner. Bob and Linda cooking together in the competition is about as hilarious as you would expect, and the back and forth between them and the news presenter is very petty but in a really funny way. But Gene is the real highlight of the episode, getting a ton of development and a great payoff. And Skip, he was just amazing. Just the trio. The Belchers going on a road trip with a snake in a limo is already an interesting and hilarious idea,
And we get more of Nat the limo driver, and she's awesome. As you can see from the honorable mentions, narrowing down this list was fairly difficult, and narrowing down the best episode was even harder. But in the end, I think I had to go with the episode Roman Barber Day, and I'll explain why. This episode deals with Bob dealing with burnout, but after refusing to take a break, his family forces him to take one by locking him out of the restaurant, and seeing as he's obsessed with work, he finds it difficult to adjust, and even getting advice on how to relax and do nothing from Mr. Fisher of all people. But eventually he stumbles upon a sandwich shop, Patricia 77 Sandwiches, and offers to help the owner Patricia instead. The reason this is my favourite episode is because it shows the best features of Bob's Burgers. It has this simple, relatable story, interesting, funny characters working off of each other in interesting, funny ways, and a lot of heart at the centre of it. The episode tackles burnout in a very realistic and down-to-earth way, and how dangerous it can be to get lost in something, whether it be work or even something you're passionate about, or both in Bob's case, to the extent of neglecting your own physical or mental health. It's a very important subject to tackle, and one I'm sure a lot of people, not just me, can identify with. It's not the only piece of media to do something like this, but it does it in a way I feel only Bob's Burgers really could, with the perfect blend of cartoon weirdness and truthful humanity. Because it's a very human show, probably the most human show I've ever seen in a long time. The song in this episode is just incredible. Bob's Burgers songs always leave an impact, but this one not only tells us the most about Bob and his drive to cook, but also reveals how much he does care about his family, and how he recognizes they care about him. The subplot is also really fun, with the bikers returning, they're always a delight, and Linda and the kids doing their best to run the restaurant with a huge baby shower going on. And all that is why this is my favourite episode. But honestly, I totally understand if you had a different favourite, or even a different top 10. Because that's the type of show it is. The type where most episodes have something that can make it worth being called the best. It's got something for everyone, from the characters, to the messages, to the jokes, to the adventures. No matter who you are, I feel like you could find something to enjoy with this show. Is it absolutely groundbreaking? No. Is it absolutely perfect? Of course not, nothing is. But I truly believe this show is something special. It has something not a lot of other shows do, and has found a way to keep it going for over a decade now. And it's at the very least better than anything else Fox is putting out right now. If you've never seen it, then I would definitely recommend checking it out. If not the whole show, then at least some of the episodes on this list. With that said, I should probably get to these at some point soon. This team really don't miss, do they? Anyway, hope you enjoyed this list. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.
This wedding is my war zone, and I'm the doctor in it. I've got to save their special day, gotta cater it to the limit. Something so important, our burgers were their cupid. Gotta give Farrah and what's his name a perfect reception to prove my job's not stupid. So do I take this meat to grill just right? I do. Take this cheese to melt on top so nice.
Bob, this isn't on you. That ceremony was upsetting. The way those two rushed into this, you'd think it was a shotgun wedding.
But do I take these buns to have and hold? I do.
All you can do is do your
Toast them perfect
bestest.
so their love grows old.